My name is Emily, and this took place back in 2014 when I was a sophomore at my new high school. For reference, I'm a female, and I was 16 years old at the time of this story. I had just moved to the school from my hometown in Savannah due to a job change from my dad where he could make a better income. Because I was a new student at the school, I was definitely no popular kid. I was in the honors program and was your typical nerd wandering around who only focused on her studies and had trouble interacting with new people. That one girl who you'd think has no life and no friends, only to end up being the most brightest student in school. Even though I had zero friends at the time, there was still this one guy in two of my classes who seemed really nice. His name was Jake, and he was a pretty cool guy for the most part. He'd ask me about what I was studying, if I liked the school, and so on and so forth. After a while, I started to consider Jake as a real friend and was glad to finally meet someone. On Valentine's Day, I was sitting down at a table at school eating my lunch when Jake walks up to me and straight up asks me if I wanted to be his Valentine. The thing was that he had brought me a bouquet of roses and a bunch of chocolate, which I found odd. I was speechless at first and really wasn't expecting him to do that. Jake and I only met not even a month ago, and I didn't really see him other than a friend. I politely turn him down, and he begins to give me a look full of disappointment, and he then gets up to leave. I felt bad, obviously, but I really wasn't looking for a relationship at the time as I had other stuff to worry about. That night, I was finishing up my project that was due for my chemistry class when I heard my Skype start ringing. I take a look at my computer and see that an unknown number is calling me. After all, I have been begging one of my cousins to try it out so we could chat through there. When I answer the call, I heard the all too familiar voice of Jake on the other end of the line. I immediately hang up and turn off my laptop for the rest of the night, not wanting to talk with Jake anymore. I have no idea as to how he managed to get my Skype, not to mention my phone number. I didn't sleep well for the rest of the night, and I was afraid of going to school the next day, fearing Jake and what he'd possibly say to me. For whatever reason, I finally decided to go and was surprised to find that Jake had not been in either one of my classes. It was strange, but I was honestly relieved. During one of my classes, we were all going over our tests when my teacher gets a phone call and tells me to go to the office for something. The sophomores at the school were still a bit immature, and I was bombarded with oohs and laughs while walking out. I get to the main office and go into the conference room and was greeted to 3 police officers as well as my principal and another student that I have never seen before sobbing. They tell me to have a seat and get straight to the point and begin to ask me about Jake. My face went pale and I was honest with them and told them that he had been stalking me for a few days now. They went on to explain that Jake was planning on killing me and another student on that specific day because we had both rejected him to be his Valentine. They didn't say how he was planning on doing this, but they were eventually told by another student that he was planning on something and my name was mentioned. I was petrified and couldn't even move due to the sheer panic I was feeling inside of me. The whole school had issued an email and a phone call to all the staff and parents addressing that there was a threat and that the school would be on high alert. They had refused to give me any more information about how they found this out or as to why he didn't show up for school. My parents pulled me out of school for a week until Jake was taken care of and that there wouldn't be a threat to me anymore. It turns out, Jake was known to have told threats against people, especially females who have turned him down or did him wrong in some way. There hasn't been any clear evidence that he's ever done something like that in the past. But just because he's never done it before, it doesn't mean that he'll never do it. I never saw Jake again after that incident, and he thankfully never returned to school. I still don't know if he was expelled, locked in prison, or perhaps something even worse. This incident will forever be with me for the rest of my life, knowing that someone had the sheer desire to end my life, all because of a rejection.
This started when I was in middle school. I was 12 at the time, so having a Valentine was everything to me. I was a social kid, and I liked this boy. We'll call him Kenneth, and honestly, I thought he liked me back. Every day of that February after lunch, there were little notes that someone put in my locker. I thought it was weird because his locker was far from mine, but I was a daydreamer. I just thought that he liked me back, that he liked me enough that he would leave notes for me. The day before Valentine's, a kid that was very skinny and was wearing a black hood with a lion's logo stood in front of my locker, blocking me from it. "Hi," he said, shivering. "Would you like to go on a date?" I had never seen this guy before. I was trying to see how awkward it would be if we were on a date, and we didn't know what to talk about. "Sorry, I have plans," I said, and I walked away. It was really weird. Later, I was walking home, and I stopped to get something from Target. I was looking at some candy bars when I noticed someone that was as tall as me. He had this hood, with a lion's logo on it. I left with the candy bar, and I started to make my way home. I called my mom to tell her that I was going to be late. There was a shortcut that was an abandoned train station. I would only take it when I was going to be late. As I was walking, a bush next to me started to move. And I don't know why, but after what I saw at the store, I freaked out, and I ran the rest of the way home. When I finally got home, I got out my phone and I saw a text. It was from an unknown number. There were pictures of me running and me walking around the store. I immediately showed them to my mom, and she simply said it was probably friends. Friends or not, that's simply creepy. The next day I showed my friends the number. They looked at the number and said, That's the weird kid's number. I know because he gave it to me and I never texted him." This really freaked me out. I still see him around the school, but when I do, I'll glare at him, and I try to keep my distance. And number 6, The Break-In, submitted by Ralph. For this story, I will need to tell you a bit of background information. I am 6 feet tall, 16 years old, and I live in a very small country named Latvia. Probably some of you know it. I have shared this story only with close friends, other family members, and my parents. We live in a 2-story house, and my room is on the 2nd floor. My parents often leave me home alone because they travel a lot for work things. This happened on Valentine's Day 2015. It was a cold winter night, and I had just broken up with my girlfriend, so I was completely alone to watch the house. It was around 8 that night. I was downstairs watching TV shows on Netflix when I heard a light knocking on my living room door. I got up to look outside, and there was no one there. After an hour or so, I heard the tapping again. I peeked outside, only to see someone running by the bush where the road leads to another street. I thought someone was pranking me, so I didn't really care too much. After a half hour of watching TV shows, I got bored, so I asked my friend to come over. He lived about 5 minutes away from where I live. For safety purposes, I'll call him Jake. Jake was shorter than me and a year younger. He came over and we played some video games. After a while, I needed to go pee, so I went upstairs to use the bathroom. When I got back to the living room, Jake told me he heard tapping on the window. I wasn't surprised, and I told him before he got here I heard the tapping too. 1 hour passed, and then we heard the tapping coming again, and we ignored it. After about 3 minutes, we heard footsteps upstairs, and that's when things got serious. We muted the game. The footsteps stopped. We thought the footsteps were in the game, so we continued to play, trying to listen at the same time. Then we heard something heavy fall upstairs in my parents' bedroom. I paused the game and me and Jake went upstairs. We checked every room. We checked my parents last. I peeked inside the room and saw nothing. It was pitch black, and I turned on the light and went into the room with Jake behind me. Jake checked the closet and I checked everywhere else. As we were leaving the room, I forgot that we did not check under the bed, so I hesitantly asked Jake if he could just quickly look. He walked over slowly, obviously a bit anxious. He looked under the bed, and he jumped up faster than I've ever seen him get up. He bolted out of the room without saying a word, and I quickly turned off the light and slammed the door shut. Jake was already downstairs. I rushed down there to him, and he was pale as snow. I asked him what was wrong, and his answer made my heart sink. He said there was someone under the bed, smiling with eyes wide open. We rushed outside and called the police. We hid behind a bush that was in front of my home. As I was on the line with the police officer, Jake and I saw my parents' bedroom light come on. I asked them to come over as fast as they possibly could. We watched the house for about 10 minutes, but we saw no movement inside. When police finally arrived, 2 officers went to search the house, and the 3rd officer asked a couple of questions. After a moment, the 2 police officers came out of the house with a middle-aged man. He had a long beard with wide, bloodshot eyes. His face was full of scars and bruises. Now I get why Jake looked so pale. One of the police officers told us that the man had a knife hidden in one of his pockets. He had broken in by an unlocked bedroom window, but how on earth did he get up to the 2nd floor? I have no idea. The police called my family, who said they'd be back in town as soon as they possibly could. Nothing like that has happened since that day, but I still get goosebumps thinking about and writing this, because it sounds like, even if I didn't invite Jake over, I still wouldn't have spent Valentine's Day alone.